අධ්‍යාපනය සෑම දරුවෙකුගේම අයිතියක්. කිසිම හේතුවක් නිසා කිසිම දරුවෙකුට ඒ අයිතිය අහිමි කළ යුතු නැහැ. ඒ උදාර අරමුණ වෙනුවෙන් අපෙන් ඔබට ගම්මැද්ද තක්සලාව
free to air.
සතියේ සෑම දිනකම උදෑසන 8ට TV1 බලන්න.
Hello there, very good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime News on TV1. On behalf of the Newsfirst, the voice of the people, I'm Martin Satyanesan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for this afternoon.
Trade union action launched by teachers and principals enter the 5th day. Farmers in Kantale geared up to use organic fertilizer. Officials non-committal. Health guidelines relaxed further. Permission granted for musical shows at 50% capacity. Journalists question government over relief to be provided following Basil Rajapaksa's entry.
Instant noodles වගේ රටක් පාලනය කරන්න බෑ කියන එක කවුරුත් තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ.
Now those stories in detail. Authorities have decided to relax health guidelines further pursuant to a circular issued by the Director General of Health Services. The relaxed restrictions will be in effect from today.
According to the revised guidelines, indoor musical shows have been permitted with a seating capacity of 50%. Outdoor musical shows and festivals continue to be restricted. Zoological parks have been permitted to reopen and operate at a capacity of 25%. The circular also allows for wildlife parks and reserves to reopen, subject to certain restrictions. Children's playgrounds and boardings have also been given the go-ahead to reopen. Permission has also been granted for betting centres to reopen. Places of worship have been permitted to reopen. However, separate guidelines will be issued with respect to religious festivals. Adventure sites and camping sites have been granted permission to operate. Sporting activities that do not give rise to a risk in the spread of COVID-19 have also been granted permission to recommence. A consignment of 1.5 million doses of the Maradana vaccine reached the island this morning under the COVAX facility of the World Health Organization. State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana said the stock of vaccines were imported from the United States. State Minister Professor Channa Jayasumana added that the consignment of Maradana vaccines will be used for the vaccination programs in the Kandy district.
We are thankful to the United States of America for providing us with doses of the Maradana vaccine. Based on our request, Sri Lanka was able to procure all types of COVID-19 vaccines produced worldwide.
Meanwhile, 50 more COVID-19 deaths were reported in the country yesterday.
The deaths reported yesterday includes 29 males and 21 females. 38 of the deceased were over 60 years of age. The Government Information Department said the deaths were confirmed by the Director General of Health Services on the 14th of this month. The total death toll due to COVID-19 in the country currently stands at 3,661.
Meanwhile, the collective of trade unions and polynomial organizations signed a petition in Colombo today against the government's suppression of dissent.
The protesters marched towards the presidential secretariat after signing the petition. Thereafter, an official attached to the president's office accepted the petition compiled by the collective of trade unions and polynomial organizations.
This has been done when trade unions are engaged in a fair struggle. We came here to hand over this petition signed by all trade union leaders to the president. Release the other trade union leader immediately. Stop suppression. We will hand this over to you. Ensure that the president receives it immediately.
Several protests were staged in the island requesting solution to the ever-rising cost of living today as well.
The National Federation of Small-Scale Tea Estate Owners had organized a protest in Kalubovitiana in Matara today. The protest was staged to urge the authorities to provide sufficient fertilizer for the production of tea.
මේ ප්‍රදේශවල ජීවත් වෙන අහිංසක ගොවි ජනතාව ඩොලර් බිලියන 1.3ක්
Farmers earned more than $1.3 billion for the government. There are around 500,000 people relying on tea plantations. More than 3 million people are linked to the tea planting industry directly or indirectly. The government suspended the import of fertilizer without considering its ramifications, revoked that gazette and safeguard the tea industry. The opposition at the Rattora Pradeshya Sabha staged a protest opposite the Rattora Pradeshya Sabha complex. The protest was held to highlight many issues, including the hike in fuel prices, the fertilizer crisis and other woes of the masses.
The trade union action launched by teachers and principals by suspending online lessons entered the 5th consecutive day today. The trade union action was launched on Tuesday the 12th based on several demands, including the action taken to quarantine a group of protesters after being granted bail by court.
The police arrested the group during a protest launched by a student movement on the 8th, citing that the protest was staged violating quarantine regulations. The group was later produced in court and was sent for quarantine immediately after being granted bail. However, the teachers' union alleged that this was done without subjecting the arrested protesters to any PCR tests. Students who are dependent on online education to follow their academic curriculum have now been deprived of their ability to continue their studies online for 5 days.
The All Ceylon Teachers Union today staged a protest near the Jaffna main bus stand against the suppression of teachers union activists who fought for free education.
If there are drawbacks in the Act, those should be discussed and resolved. Even we believe that certain amendments must be made. We have discussions in this regard internally. So for those who are against the government, if you have any opinions or criticism about what needs to be fixed, you can present it and we are prepared to accept them. However, these people are protesting on the roads when a virus is spreading in the country. They are not doing this to oppose the Kotalawala Defence University Act or to safeguard free education. They are simply doing this to sabotage the vaccination drive in the country.
SJB MP Manusha Nanayakara expressed the following views in regards to the protest staged by the teachers and principals trade unions.
The
teachers are not demanding a salary increment or to get any other benefits for themselves. It is only to secure their rights as teachers. The government is always of the opinion that if anyone is making statements against the government, they should be suppressed. They either send them to jail or sent to a quarantine center or make statements against them. The government tries to find a way to eradicate them. They are making these statements against these very teachers who voted for the government.
Teachers are a group of educated people in society, and as intellectuals, they should be able to solve their issues through discussions. However, we condemn the manner in which the police have punished these protesters. A protest is a way of making a certain demand. The police should not put extra burden on these protesters by harassing them. During a protest, the police should act in a more responsible manner. I too was a part of a struggle to win over the rights of the teachers. Even back then, my stance was responsibility comes first, duty comes second, and rights come third. That should always be the case. But if you put your rights over anything else, our responsibilities and duties will come second.
Minister of Public Security Sarath Weerasekara said that he will stand by the actions of the police in dealing with protesters recently.
We know that these protests are not staged for the betterment of the society, but to hamper the programs launched by the government. For so long as the police, we silently stood by, as this is a democratic right. That is true. But after that, the Director General of Health Services gave us a clear instruction saying that protests must be stopped. That is the reason why the police went and stopped those protests. These protesters were taken to quarantine not because the police wanted to, but because they were requested in writing to quarantine these people by the public health inspector. The minister made this statement while speaking at the event to declare open a new police station in Panadura.
The journalists questioned Minister Johnston Fernando on not receiving concession, even after Basil Rajapaksa assumed duties as a Minister of Finance.
ඔබතුමල්ලා කිව්වා බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයා ආපු ගමන් සහන දෙනවා ඉන්ධන මිල අඩු වෙනවා කියලා. තාම නම් එහෙම පාටක් පේන්නේ නැහැ. බැසිල් මහත්මයා කිව්වෙත් නැහැ මම කිව්වෙත් නැහැ. හැබැයි පක්ෂය කිව්වා. පක්ෂය කියනවා.
Party members might have said that. Vimal Veeravansa's party says one thing. Dasir Jayasekara's party says some other thing. Members of our party also say different things. The young parliamentarians have the right to say that. That is their opinion. We have not conducted disciplinary inquiries against them. If the fuel prices needs to be reduced, we will reduce it. We don't have any doubts about it. However, everyone should understand that a country cannot be governed in a manner similarly to making instant noodles.
Farmers in Gunawardhanapura in Peramaduwa village are facing difficulties due to the lack of fertilizer.
Around 300 families that engaged in farming in Gunawardhanapura, Peramaduwa have been severely affected by the shortage of fertilizer. In a bid to prevent their lands from turning barren, the farmers had shifted to producing organic fertilizer. The farmers allege that even though organic fertilizer was produced by them to the best of their ability, through their own spending, none of the responsible officials have taken measures to provide them with technical expertise or assess their progress. They say that they will provide concessions. However, we have not received any of them. When we create a program like this and we are not provided with the assistance, who should we ask? We registered with the Agrarian Services a month ago. No progress. We have registered to provide 3,000 kilograms per month. We do not have sufficient knowledge. Those responsible should ensure that we are educated on this. Meanwhile, the farmers in Galloya Ampara are facing issues due to being unable to contain the spread of weed infesting their paddy fields. At present, it is reported that many types of weed have taken over their paddy lands. The farmers allege that the growth of weed has overshadowed their crop, since fertilizer was not used on the lands in a timely manner. The farmers also lament that the situation will largely impact their harvest.
Come
to the paddy fields and speak to the farmers about the difficulties that we are facing without fertilizer. Simply boasting on media does not provide solutions to this issue. Not only the farmers but even consumers will be affected in the future.
A fire has broken out at the Maradana police station earlier this morning. The fire department says the fire broke out on the second floor of the police station. It also stated that 3 of its service vehicles have been deployed to douse the fire. Upon inquiries made by Newsfirst on the fire from the Maradana police, it said that the fire had broken out on the second floor where the police officers were residing and the fire has been brought under control. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has requested China to be more cooperative when it comes to the second phase of investigation into identifying the origins of COVID-19. The first phase of the WHO's investigation ended in February. It concluded that it was highly unlikely that the virus came from a laboratory in Wuhan, China, and that it probably originated in bats. Speaking in Geneva yesterday, Dr. Tedros said WHO needs access to raw patient data from just before and start of the pandemic this time around. However, he added that China did not share this data with the WHO team during the first investigation.
We are asking actually China to be transparent, open and cooperate, especially on the information raw data that we asked for at the early days of the pandemic. I was a lab technician myself. I'm an immunologist and I have worked in the lab. Lab accidents happen. It's common. I have seen it happening. And I myself had errors. So it can happen.
A rescue mission is underway to save 14 workers trapped in a flooded tunnel being built in southern China. Teams are pumping water out of the highway tunnel to find workers who were caught when it collapsed yesterday. Hundreds of rescuers, along with 22 fire trucks and 5 pumping stations, are trying to locate the workers. Investigators are trying to discover what caused the flooding at the tunnel in Zhuhai, Guangdong province. Officials say that the construction workers heard strange noises about 1 kilometer inside the tunnel. An evacuation was ordered on Wednesday, but water began gushing into the tunnel and 14 of the workers could not make it out. Heavy rains and floods lashing Western Europe have killed at least 59 people in Germany and 9 in Belgium, and many more people are missing as rising waters caused several houses to collapse yesterday. In Germany, which is experiencing one of the worst weather disasters since World War II, desperate residents sought refuge on the roofs of their homes as rescue helicopters circled above. Unusually heavy rains also inundated neighboring Luxembourg, the Netherlands and Belgium. Experts say the climate change is expected to increase the frequency of extreme weather events, but linking any single event to global warming is complicated. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has pledged full support for victims of some of the country's worst flooding in decades. Record rainfall in Western Europe caused rivers to burst their banks, devastating the region. The US and Germany will stand together against Russian aggression, President Joe Biden said as he welcomed outgoing Chancellor Angela Merkel to Washington. Joe Biden said he had voiced concern to Angela Merkel over a Russia to Germany gas pipeline, but they agreed Moscow cannot be allowed to use energy as a weapon. The US president said the two allies also opposed anti-democratic actions by China. Merkel, who has worked with 4 US presidents, is leaving office. From that, we bring to a close this edition of Lunchtime News on TV1. For details of these stories and much more, simply log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. For the Newsfirst, the voice of the people, I am Martin Satyanathan. You take care and stay safe.